This is Introductory to 2D Machining, and today we're going to be walking through how to set up a job, applying toolpaths, as well as showing stock simulation. What we want to do is machine the part as how it would be set up within a vise for setup number one. So what I have is the part actually set up in a vise, showing you exactly how we machine according to step number one. So first thing we're going to do is access CAM for Fusion 360. At the very top left-hand corner, if I drop down by the paper symbol, I can go down to New Toolpath from Design, and that will put me into the CAM environment. How do I know that I'm in the CAM environment? Is number one, it'll say CAM, as well as it'll give me some of the toolpath operations that I can apply, as well as setup sheets and post-processing. If I want to go back into the Fusion environment, what I need to do is come over here to the CAM icon, drop down the modeling, and now I'm back in the modeling environment for Fusion 360. If I want to go back over, come over here to the return check mark, click that, and now I'm back into the CAM experience. So let's go ahead and get started. First thing is always going to be setting up the job. So we'll come over here in the far left-hand corner, and I'm going to go ahead and click New Setup. One thing to keep in mind too is that it automatically picks up the model you want to work with, but two, I want to double check the units because I want to work in inches. So to change the units, one thing you want to do is on the far left hand corner of the browser where it says units, you can click on the little paper and pencil and you can change the active units, and we'll go to inches. Here now, let's go back up the setup, and then we're going to go under stock, and we're going to designate the size of the stock that we're going to start machining with. So what this means is that if I use fixed size box, it says that, well, I'm going to go pick a piece of aluminum off the shelf that's 2 inches by 2 inches by 4 inches, something along that way. But if I want to designate, hey, take my part and add material to the outside, and that will be the size of my stock, I'm going to drop under relative size box. And now I can key in 1.15, adding material on the side, 0.255 on the top, and 0.255 on the bottom. So here now, what we want to do is we also want to designate where we want the work coordinate system, which is the triad right here. And we want it on the top far corner. And I want to show you that, as I showed you in the example with the part in the fixture, how we're going to have that orientated. So really, the part's going to be facing upward, just like this, and I can use my view cube at the very far right hand corner, but I want the work coordinate system to be positioned in the far upper right hand corner here in relationship. So under model, what I'm going to do is for stock point, activate that, and that's going to show me all these points, and I can go and click the back corner just like that if I want to have it machined that way. So it's going to start as that corner as a reference to everything else. I'm going to go and say OK now. So now I've set up the job designating the size of the stock, and if I click on in my browser folder, I can click on the name of the folder twice, and it'll activate the name, and I can say, main setup, rename things, keep things organized, and then move forward from there. So first things first, I'm always going to face the part. And to face the part, what we're going to do is come over here to 2D setup, 2D toolpaths, come down under face, and then now I'm going to come over here to tool. And what I did is this is a preview of the Windows library. And with this is that I can dig through, and I'm going to go look for 2-inch face mill. So if I dig under the tutorial section, you'll see I'll have a 2-inch face mill that I can select and work with. If I click on it, right click and say edit, you can see that now I can see all the specific parameters for the face mill. So something to keep in mind if I want to make changes. I can even change any one right here and dig through, as well as even create my own custom one with a form mill. So some things you can keep in mind of how customizable our libraries are for the Windows side, which will be implemented on the Mac side as well in the upcoming releases. So I'm going to hop back over to the face mill. And one thing I want to point out though is you can create custom libraries. So if I want to always work with these specific parts or these specific tools all the time, if I come over here to my libraries, right click, say new library, I can now create my own library, which I did earlier, and I have tools that I copied and pasted into this library. So I can always go back to them, right? Instead of digging through and going to tutorial or trying to dig through and always remembering where that specific one is, I can just right click on a tool, copy, come over here to a library that I just created, right click, and just paste it right in there to work with. So just a tip and trick to think about when working with your library. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and face the part, select face, say select, and say okay, and it's gonna go ahead and automatically face the part. And that's the beauty about Canva Fusion 360. When you work with the face mill, it automatically knows the height of the stock as well as the top of the face, and it will go ahead and machine that. If I want to make sure I'm doing this correctly, I can go ahead and show a stock simulation to make sure it's machining that top face. So if I right click on the main setup and come down here to simulate, I can now come over and say, let me turn on the stock, make it transparent, and now come down here to the very bottom middle and say start the simulation. You can see right there that it's machining the top face, just like that. And there we go. It shows me a preview of the toolpath. Close that out. Now I can continue forward. So what's the next step I want to do is I probably want to rough out the outside of this part, right? Because if you look at how it's set up in my stock, in my vise here, I have, that remainder amount of material that I'm going to flip over and then face the back side, but I want to get that outside curvature right there. So I'm going to do is introduce you now 2D adaptive clearing, great for reference strategies. So come on over, activate that. I'm going to come back over here to my library, tool library, and I can go through and I can search under tutorial, pick. I'm going to do a flat end mill. So I have it already set up in my custom library. I'm going to go and grab that guy. One thing to keep in mind too is the flute lengths, and depending on how thick the stock is, depends on the type of flute length you want to work with, as well as the length of the actual tool. You can see here the parameters that I have. I have a diameter of 1/2 inch, which can rough that part out very quickly, as well as just a longer flute length, just to dive right deep in and remove that material. So I'm going to accept that guy. And then from here, now I need to pick geometry, right? So for geometry, I'm going to come on over in the geometry tab, and it says, well, what do you want to machine? Well, if I pick the outside edge, because that's what I want to machine, right? Everything on the outside of that edge, it shows me a preview, and the blue is showing me exactly, hey, you know what? This is the size of the stock, and I'm machining all that stuff that's in blue. But if you notice though, where the position is, right? Well, it's at the very top of the part. I need to machine to the very bottom of the part as well. So what I'm going to do is come over here to the heights tab, and I can physically come here down to the bottom section, and I can say, well, let me go from the model bottom, meaning that machine all the way down to the model bottom. And if I zoom out, you can see that it's going directly down to the model bottom, but I always like the machine, by best rule of thumb, is a little bit past the model bottom, right? Because I'm going to face the back side. So I can actually grab the plane and drag it and move it if I want, just depending on how I want to be positioned. So I can say, have it go down maybe, 50 thousandths of an inch below the model bottom. And from here now I can say accept. We'll go ahead and preview that guy. It's going to go and generate the toolpath just like that. So if I right click on the main setup, come down here to simulate. Now I can say, let me go ahead and preview this, play. First I'm going to face the part, just get speeded up, and then come over and rough that guy right out, just like that. There we go. Really simple. So next step now is I want to add a finishing pass on the outside. How do I know that I need to add a finishing pass? Well, let me show you a little tip here. So if I actually right click on the 2D adaptive and say edit, if I go over here to the passes tab, you notice that by default stock to leave is turned on. So I always like to personally do a roughing pass and then come back in and do a finishing pass. But I could always turn that off and do it all in one step. It's all about rule of thumb, best practices, and what you prefer. So I want to show you how to do a finishing pass after you do the roughing strategy. So I'm going to go and cancel out. And to do a finishing pass, I like to do a 2D contour. So under the 2D operation, drop down, come in here to 2D contour, activate that guy. And then from here now, I'm going to come over and use that same tool. So it remembers the same tool I used previously. And I'm just going to go ahead and under geometry, select this edge, come on down to heights now. I want to machine to the model bottom, right? And then I'll maybe go a little bit past it, right? So maybe, I don't know, 0.25. Say okay. Oh, so I picked a slot command. My apologies. Going to just delete that guy. Come back here to 2D contour. Got that guy. Geometry. Pick this edge. And under heights, come on down to the bottom height and drop down to model bottom. And we'll go a little bit past that, 0.25, just like that. Say okay. And there we go, did a finishing pass. So we'll show, once again, really easy, simulate, and play. Face the part, I can speed it up, rough it, and then now come in and do a finishing pass, just like that. And you can see that I'm depicting all the different colors for each different operation. So for mode, I have standard, I have it on colorization as operation. So show me each operation as a different color, as well as material set as default, and I can always change it to whatever material I feel like. As well as I like to set the under toolpath, under mode, go to tail, because what that does, it just makes it a little bit cleaner. So if I go and play from the top, it kind of trails the toolpath as it's going through, showing me exactly what's going on there. Go and close that guy out. So we're about 80% of the way there. Next thing I'm going to do is add that chamfer to the top edge. And you'll notice though is that if I come over here to 2D, we don't have a chamfer operation. So we like to keep things clean and simple, right? Because a chamfer operation would be done as a 2D contour. So if I physically come here to 2D contour, well, how do I know where to go to do a chamfer operation? So it all begins with the tool you pick. If I come on over back to tool under select, and once again, I can dig through, go to the tutorial, find a chamfer mill if I want specifically right there, as you can see, if I want that guy, or I can copy and paste and put it into my rocker arm. I'm gonna go with a half inch diameter, 45-degree chamfer mill. Go ahead and select that guy, just like that. Under geometry, now I'm gonna pick this edge, the bottom edge of what I want to be chamfered. And then under passes now, what you notice is that since I picked a chamfer mill, it's actually shown and turns on the chamfer operation. So it's intelligent enough to know that, hey, depending on the tool you pick, it would turn on or turn off operations you can work with. Really, really key there. And I always like to do a tip offset of, let's do a 0.02, just like that. Okay, say okay. And what this is telling me is I'm not doing a tip offset and I'm not machining with the tip of the tool, right? Because of center of rotation, it's pushing material, not cutting it. So I'm going to move it down about 20 thousandths of an inch, just like that. So from here now, go ahead and right click just to simulate. I always like to simulate just to make sure everything looks great. Hit play, come right across, face it, rough it, do a finishing pass, and do a chamfer pass right around it, just like that. So now the next step, just two last steps, is I need to bore out these holes. Go and just rotate this guy around so we can take a look at it. Now to do a bore, all it is come on over, drop down to bore. I'm going to go ahead and pick the tool that I want to work with, which I'll just go ahead and reuse the same half-inch flat end mill. Say select. Under geometry, I want to bore out this guy and this guy first, right? I'm using a half-inch, so it can't actually cut these other holes. We'll go and do that as another operation. Say okay. Got that. Come back up, drop down, do another operation under bore. And this time I'm going to pick a smaller end mill. So I am going to go with a 1/4-inch end mill right there. Say okay. Under geometry, pick that center, that guy, as well as that guy. So the reason why I'm not picking these bottom ones is because In step number 2, I'm going to flip the part over, clamp it down, and then face the backside and drill those other holes. So something to keep in mind. That's the reason why I'm not picking those. Go and say OK. There we go. And now all I have to do is simulate to make sure everything looks great. Right click, simulate, hit play, or face the part, rough it out, come in, do a finishing pass, chamfer, bore it out, and there we go. Things looking great, just like that. So that concludes setup number 1 for the introductory to 2D machining.